This is CBC Here and Now.
Improving safety, the province installs a new guardrail after 2 deadly accidents.
New drunk driving rules aimed at young drivers kick in tomorrow.
It's a starting point.
The post is going to collapse here and this will fail.
Landscapers point out poor work at Victoria Park.
Rain continues to roll through tonight, but we're clearing out nicely Thursday and into Friday. I'll have those details and your weekend forecast coming up.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. Part of the Trans-Canada Highway is a little safer tonight.
Yes, after 2 deadly incidents on the Avalon, the province is installing new guardrails.
Here and Now's Peter Cowan is live tonight in our newsroom to fill us in. So Peter, where is this work being done?
Well, Debbie, let's show you the work that's happening on the Trans-Canada Highway right near the Fox Trap Access Road overpass. Crews are installing about 100 meters of new guardrail. This is the same spot where just earlier this month, Allison Smith's car went off the road, killing her. And this isn't the first time we've seen a deadly accident at this site. It was just 2 years ago that another person went off the road there. That was Sheldon Quinton. He was killed when his truck collided down that embankment. So crews are now busy working to try and fix this issue. And there was a lot of pressure on them to do something. There was a signature with 17,000 people demanding that this guardrail be extended. Police are still investigating the most recent accident, but officials told me today that the cost of doing this work is only about $15,000. Carolyn?
Thank you, Peter. That's Here Now's Peter Cowan reporting live in the newsroom. Well, still with safety improvements being made on the TCH, Parks Canada announced today that new passing lanes will open this Friday in Terra Nova National Park. The federal government is improving 13 locations along the Trans-Canada Highway that run through the park. 6 of those areas near the western entrance to the park will open this Friday. The remaining locations will open by mid-October once proper signage and guardrails are in place.
It has been a busy and trying time for the RCMP in this province. A horrific spate of deadly traffic collisions, a large deployment to Labrador, and the death of one of their own by suicide. Some officers are quietly telling us it's taking a toll. All this on top of budget cuts and large numbers of officers not available for frontline duty. Here Now's Terry Roberts reports.
Scenes like this have dominated headlines. 18 dead in 7 weeks of carnage on our roads. Why? Some are saying there weren't enough Mounties on patrol. Here's what we do know. Police officers flooded into Labrador this summer, brought in as a show of force to protect the shipment of transformers for Muskrat Falls from possible protests, and to ward off the kind of chaos that temporarily shut down the massive project last year. No one will give the exact number, but sources say upwards of 150 officers were deployed to Labrador in recent weeks. The cost to provincial taxpayers? About $10 million. Did this deployment erode highway enforcement efforts, as some officers and veteran drivers have told us? The Justice Minister says absolutely not.
There was no linkage whatsoever between Muskrat Falls deployment and people being on the ground. In fact, to make up the force that went to Muskrat Falls, we deployed officers from all over this country, from RCMP all over, in fact, members of the RNC. So that is not linked whatsoever.
And then there was this. Corporal Trevor O'Keefe, dying by suicide. Some veteran officers say it exposed a crisis in their unit. One source says the number of officers available for frontline duty has never been so low, forcing others to work longer hours, under more stress. Senior leadership with the RCMP were not available for an interview, but CBC News obtained this breakdown of the force's strength. There are 437 RCMP positions in the province. About 4% of these are vacant, and another 8 to 10% are on some form of leave. That's more than 60 vacancies, and that doesn't include those who aren't in the field, officers working desk duty or on disability. Some officers say that's causing added stress and affecting morale. The Justice Minister recognizes there are some big challenges.
So if there's ways that we can increase the presence of our officers, in fact, I have meetings today to discuss this very issue.
There's also fewer dollars for the RCMP to spend. Our government pays about 70% of the cost of the RCMP in this province, about $73 million this year. Well, that's about $2.2 million less than what was budgeted last year. But Andrew Parsons says none of those cuts were to frontline officers. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the man accused of setting fire to community buildings in the Bay d'Espoir area, including a grade school, has pleaded guilty. Donald Craig McCate admitted to arson this afternoon in court in Grand Falls, Windsor. Here Now's Garrett Barry has that story.
Donald Craig McCate appeared briefly in the courthouse just behind me this afternoon. The 49-year-old from Mooresville pleaded guilty to 3 counts of arson, admitting he set fire to a K-12 school, a town and fire hall, and a police detachment in Milltown, head of Bay d'Espoir. Those fires were set early in the morning of January 17th, causing serious damage to all 3 buildings. The local museum is located inside the town hall, and some of its artifacts were destroyed. There was so much damage to Bay d'Espoir Academy that students there had to be sent to a nearby community to finish out the year, while a new school was built. McCate was arrested the same day those fires were set, and he's been held in custody ever since. He had nothing to say today, inside or outside of the courtroom. His lawyer also declined to speak to the media. A sentencing hearing has been set for December 3rd. Garrett Barry, CBC News, Grand Falls, Windsor.
We are learning more today about the young Saskatchewan woman killed in Marystown over the weekend in what police are calling a murder-suicide. Police say 18-year-old Rihanna Krywachewski was deliberately killed by her boyfriend, 37-year-old Jeff Kilfoy. The young woman was found in a basement apartment Saturday afternoon. She had reportedly lived in Marystown for just a short time. Family and friends say Krywachewski loved animals, loved to cook, and was a creative artist who dreamed of becoming a welder.
The vibe people get when you pass her in the halls was that she was really rough and tough and scary, but if you even said hi to her, she broke out in the biggest smile, and she was the sweetest person, and she had such a beautiful heart, and if anyone was willing to give her the time of day, like, she would show you it. And so she was a really giving, generous, sweet person. She did a lot of welding, and she was really amazing at it. I'm not sure if all of her work was displayed, but quite a bit of it was displayed in the foyer, and it was hung up on walls or set in display cases to show off, because she was amazing at it. I would look at her work and it blew my mind that she was in high school because it looked so professional. In grade 9, within the first couple months of school, she had gotten in this really bad car accident, and she was crossing the street, walking to school one day, from her bus stop, I believe, and a car had just come and hit her straight on, and she had a lot of head trauma from it. She had a giant scar on her head, and I know, was in recovery for quite a long time, and some of the effects were long-lasting, but it was amazing. She didn't let it deter her from doing anything that she wanted to do, and she was still so nice to everyone that would give her the time of day. She was still in advanced placement classes. She still graduated on time with all the rest of us, and it was amazing. I always called her unbreakable.
Well, a multi-million-dollar redevelopment of a park in the west end of St. John's is under fire tonight. Victoria Park is getting a major overhaul, but the province's Landscaping Association says it has serious concerns about the quality of the work done so far. Here Now's Mark Quinn visited the park today to find out more.
Victoria Park is one of the City of St. John's jewels, a green space that's been enjoyed by residents since the 1890s. But right now, landscaper Michael Murray describes it as a failed landscape.
Oh, this would cost thousands of dollars to repair, because you'd have to break down a fair bit of this to meet the specifications and install it properly.
In 2015, the park received $1 million, a 50-50 split between the city and the province. Last year, the city awarded a $1.2 million contract for this landscaping. Today, Murray walked CBC through the work that's been done so far, pointing out what he believes are some glaring problems.
Well, if you can see here.
First stop, the fence at Hamilton Avenue. Murray says its concrete footings won't work.
The post is going to collapse here, and this will fail.
Next stop, the bridge over what was once a small river.
This is going to split right open, and for a child or someone putting their hand in here, the way this is such a ragged edge, great place to pick up a splinter. Over here.
And he says there are many other problems, like these boulders that Murray believes will eventually tumble out of place. Now, I did speak with the Victoria Park Foundation. They're the group tasked with raising $2 of the $3 million for this project. They said they don't have enough information right now to comment on the concerns that are being raised about this project, but they did say they expect a full report on this at their next Board of Directors meeting. This week, the city also issued a statement about the project. It says the Victoria Park changes are still under construction. And until the project is completed, there may be deficiencies that are currently being addressed. Furthermore, it says the city does not pay the contractor for deficient or incomplete work. Murray is calling on the city to demand higher standards when it awards contracts. He says that would ultimately save it time and money. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, we could see by that it was a pretty sunny day for the most part in the St. John's area. Let's bring Ryan in now to see if that'll be the case as we head into the weekend.
Yeah, well, you know, we're timing out the rain quite nicely for tonight, and you can see as we take a look at the radar, we are looking at the nice day in St. John's that has disappeared with those steadier rains moving through as we speak. At times, steady to heavy tonight, and in fact seeing a pretty solid band right now stretching from the Bonavista Bay area back across into the interior. Also some pretty steady showers on the go for Corner Brook, and as we look again off to the south, we've got some of those steadier rains moving in over the Avalon for this evening into the overnight. Watch your timeline here. So still those lingering rains tonight, and southeastern parts of Labrador looking at those scattered showers clearing. By the time we get to 7 a.m. tomorrow, and that school bus time and off to work, we are looking at a pretty solid start for most of us. It's just the metro region where we have some showers on the go. Look at those mild temps though, 13 degrees to start the day. Much cooler in Lab West at just 1. We'll talk about what temperatures do through the day. A little hint, warming up nicely in Labrador. Temperatures stalling here in metro. We'll talk all about that coming up in a few minutes. Debbie?
Thanks, Ryan. Well, all week, St. John's has been buzzing about the big show Under the Big Top. The Iceberg Alley Performance Tent is getting rave reviews from music fans who are loving both the venue and the bands.
Yes, tonight could be the biggest night of the whole festival, with local favorite Arkells taking the stage. And here now, Zach Audi is there, joins us now live. So, Zach, it looks fantastic there. What's it like being there?
Well, it's fantastic. Just take a look at the excitement for tonight's show. We are still about an hour away from the opening band, and already there's a big crowd of people here to make sure they have the very front row locked down for tonight's performance. Now, you could have looked at the calendar of the Iceberg Alley Performance Tent before this festival started and predicted that tonight would be the big night. Arkells are a band from Hamilton, based in Toronto, but they have found a big audience here in St. John's through persistent touring and a really energetic live show. There are 12 shows booked here under the big tent. As of this morning, tonight's show had by far the biggest pre-sale. There were only a small handful of tickets left. Very likely that tonight will be the first sold-out night at the Iceberg Alley Performance Tent. So I had to get a sneak peek of this show, so I dropped by the Arkells sound check this afternoon and spoke with singer Max Kerman about how 5 guys from Hamilton found so much love here in St. John's.
Hi, my name is Max Kerman, playing the band Arkells.
This is your first time here in the Iceberg Alley Performance Tents. What's your first impressions?
They did a killer job. You know, we get a lot of Snapchats from fans and, or Instagram DMs and stuff. And a lot of people were here for like the Strumbellas, and they were sending us like photos. And I was like, oh, this looks like a really cool looking space. So yeah, we're thrilled to be here.
What do you think the discerning Canadian music fan is looking for in a festival these days?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I mean, I think the lineup has to be just right, and it's hard. I understand how difficult it can be to be a promoter and try to like book the acts, because there's a lot of competition around festivals and other shows happening in town. So I think that's the DNA of a good festival, is the lineup has to be really good. Also, I think there needs to be a real hunger for a music festival in the market. So I think one of the things we've always felt coming out to Newfoundland is that people really appreciate when a band makes their way over to the Rock. So we've always felt the enthusiasm, you know, and the real passion for our band.
How does a modern band build a fan base in all the far-flung regions of this country?
Yeah, you got to be persistent, and you also got to realize that a lot of time the fruits of your labor aren't really seen for another 18 months down the road or something. You know, it's hard to, sometimes you can feel as a touring band like you're spinning your wheels and you don't know if you're doing the right thing. But if you trust that you're delivering a good show, and you trust that the team you're working with is doing their best to help promote you and get you out there in front of the right audiences, then you will see the rewards. But it might not be for another year and a half. So we've always found that, yeah, you got to keep going back. And that, you know, when you look at sort of the careers of our favorite Canadian bands, whether it's, you know, someone like Alan Doyle or someone like you know, Jim Cuddy and the Blue Rodeo guys or the Hip, they've been persistent guys. You know, they're not they haven't been discouraged. This business isn't for the faint of heart. You gotta keep going.
Cale's concert is anything but faint of heart, so we know it'll be a big night under the big top, and there are more to come on Friday night. Country star Dean Brody, and then this weekend the Rec House International Jazz and Blues is presenting 4 fabulous concerts, including Big Sugar and Philosopher Kings, 2 of this country's best. I hope you can make it down for a night under the tent. Reporting live at St. John's, I'm Zach Gowdy for Here and Now.
Tomorrow marks the day the laws get tougher on people who drink and drive. Up next, we'll run those new rules by someone whose life was changed by a drunk driver. Welcome back. A father whose son was killed by a drunk driver 20 years ago is applauding new provincial legislation that comes into effect tomorrow. Richard Murphy says the rules aimed at reducing impaired driving should deter some drivers from drinking and driving. Richard Murphy Jr. was 20 years old when he was struck and killed by a drunk driver on a street in Scarborough. Richard's father said his son was in Ontario looking for work when his life was cut short. He left behind a young son. Richard Murphy's anger and sorrow prompted him to lobby for years for tougher impaired driving laws.
20 years ago, since your son was killed, I'm wondering, do you ever get over something like that?
No, it's impossible to get over, Debbie. It's a situation where you just grasp onto what it is, you learn to live with it, and 20 years later, there's not a day you don't think about it. But you move on. You hang on to the good, and you try to make some changes and some differences that will try and help other people that are in this same situation, right?
Well, speaking of changes, of course, there are changes to the impaired driving regulations that come into effect tomorrow. One of the major changes that I see is that anybody who's under 22, there's going to be zero tolerance of alcohol. What do you make of this move?
I think it's a really good move. I mean, the age demographic these days, it's different than it was, say, 20 years ago. I don't think it's the younger generation that is really the problem. It's the habitual drunk drivers. And by at least putting an age limit there where there's a cutoff, it's targeting the younger generation to keep them where they are now. And they know now that if they decide to be impaired before getting behind the wheel of a vehicle or after getting behind the wheel of a vehicle, there's a major consequence. There's no tolerance, zero BAC.
And you think that 20, 30 years from now, these young people will not be doing what some of the older people are still doing today? That begs the question, though, why didn't government put the age limit higher to target older people we know are on the roads drunk?
Well, I agree with what you're saying, but at least it's a starting point. In 15, 20 years' time, these will be the 40-year-old drivers, and hopefully that will be, they would have learned. Again, the habitual drunk drivers, people who drink and drive, they're up in the 40s, 50s, 60s. We're seeing it every day going through the court system. And these are the people that really need to, understand that it's not acceptable.
One of the other changes that they're making involve the mandatory ignition interlock program. What is your understanding of what they're doing now?
Based on what I'm reading, the government is introducing a mandatory ignition interlock system whereby if you're convicted of an impaired driving offense, before you get your license back at the end of your sentence or your suspension, you have to install the interlock device as part of getting your license back.
But didn't they do this already?
Yes, yeah, they did. About 15 years ago, MAD Canada introduced the interlock system to the government of Newfoundland and Labrador, but at the time, government agreed with it, but it was an option for the convicted impaired driver, and basically what it meant was, if you were convicted and lost your license, and if you wanted to get your license back a little bit earlier, maybe for work purposes, you had to agree to install the interlock system in your vehicle. I'm not sure if a lot of people took advantage of it. And I guess the frustrating part for me is that the ignition interlock system was here 15 years ago. Why didn't someone make it mandatory then?
Anything else that strikes you about the new regulations? They're going to impound cars more regularly. Is that a positive?
Yeah, absolutely, a real good move. A lot of people, a lot of impaired drivers are getting stopped and checked. Some of them don't own a vehicle. They don't have a driver's license. They're out driving their neighbors or their friend's vehicle. At least now, one positive thing that I see is that at least now, before someone will loan their vehicle to someone who they may be suspected of drinking, or they may think that they're going to drink, but they're going to think twice now, because if that person gets caught, that doesn't make any difference who owns the vehicle is gone. And I think that's a real good move.
There's still a ways to go.
Absolutely, and I find it personally very frustrating to see things, even though they're good, to see things that were talked about years and years and years ago, and now it's only now they're getting put in place. So good stuff, you know, hats off, but let's move a little bit quicker. For every deterrent, there could be a life saved.
Richard Murphy, thank you very much.
You're quite welcome.
Okay, so Debbie, as of tomorrow, zero tolerance for everyone under the age of 22. What was the rationale for setting that age?
Well, the province told us today there's already zero tolerance, of course, for new drivers. They're usually around 16. And of course, it's illegal to drink until you're 19. So government says by moving up the age by those 3 years, it gives those young drivers that much more time to just get into the habit of separating alcohol and driving. It also says it brings us in line with the rest of the country.
Ready to move on. Up next, Steve Kent packs his political boxes and talks to us about life after the legislature.
welcome back. Time to really get a good look at our forecast. But tomorrow,
I have a question for you two. So, is tomorrow the last day of summer, or is it Friday? Fall officially arrives around 5:30 Newfoundland time on Friday evening. So, is tomorrow the last day of summer, or is Friday the last day of summer?
tomorrow is the last full day of summer, but I'm hanging on to summer on Friday.
And what's the weather going to be like on Friday?
Kind of summery fallish.
Right. Well, you can't call Friday the first day of fall.
No.
Because fall doesn't start till the evening hours, so it would have to be the last day of summer, wouldn't it?
It's a very, very blurry line.
Who knows?
But we'll leave it open to interpretation. The forecast actually looks pretty similar for both days. A little bit warmer on Friday. It looks like some folks are looking to respond right now. Their cell phones going off here.
I don't even know what that is.
Now, as we take a look at your weather on the way headlines, we do have rain rolling through tonight, and autumn arrives, yes, again, Friday evening officially, but really tomorrow is going to be the start of that really fall feel in terms of the next couple of days. Anyway, we certainly have had some fall feeling type days already, but tomorrow will certainly feel a lot like autumn. It's a Saturday-Sunday split. I've got the t-shirt and the sweatshirt out for you because you're going to need both this weekend. As we take a look at the rain radar right now, we do have rain streaming through from St. John's right back across to the southwest Avalon, and looking off to the south, lots more rain to come, and some of these rains will be at times heavy moving through across southeastern Newfoundland, particularly the Avalon for tonight. Could see locally 20 to 30 millimeters. Another solid band stretching from Bonavista Bay right across into the interior, and some pretty solid showers moving through Corner Brook and Grossmorn right now. But the back edge is starting to sail in from the north. You can see some clearing there over the northern peninsula. As the sun sets, we lose our visible satellite, but it does show such a great picture, which is why I still use it around this time of year, which you can see where we had those pop-up cumulus clouds today across Labrador. A couple of stray showers, but you know what? A very good taste of what's on the way for Newfoundland tomorrow right now in Labrador. 12 degrees in Labrador City, Wabash. Mix of sun and cloud, winds in from the northwest. This is going to be basically the name of the game tomorrow across the island, across most of the province, in fact. Here's how your future tracker will shape things out by the time we get to Thursday morning. Just a lingering shower along the Avalon Peninsula, possibly up towards Bonavista. Clouds a little bit dominant for the northeast coast, but dry. Other shower chances along the coast of Labrador. Everybody else, smooth sailing. For Thursday afternoon, it's a sun-cloud mix, but again, those northerly winds coming in and across Labrador as well. Again, a bit of a cool breeze, but overall, not a bad day. And we're going to talk about temperatures near just 1 in Labrador City tomorrow morning. Everywhere else, not too bad. Mid-single digits in Labrador. We're talking about 9 to as mild as 13 degrees for the Burin and the Avalon, but that's where temperatures stay throughout the day. So we start mild at 13, and that's basically where we'll hover. We may get to 14, 15 inland, but with that northwest wind gusting to 50, it's going to be really feeling more like those low teens out there. A few clouds tomorrow evening, temperatures still near 10 degrees. And as we look across the province for tomorrow, again, likely 12, 11 degrees, places like Twillingate, Bonavista, right along the coast in those northwesterly winds. Could even see some gusts to 60 early on tomorrow. Looking at 16 to as warm as 17 degrees, shielded from that northerly wind along the southwest coast tomorrow up through Corner Brook, Grossmorn around 14, 15 degrees there. More sunshine. Looking at 12 degrees to as warm as 13 Happy Valley Goose Bay. Again, single digits along the coast, just 5 in Makkovik tomorrow, but another nice one, Labrador City, Churchill Falls, and again, with winds becoming light in from the northwest. We'll talk about Friday and the weekend in just a few minutes. Carolyn?
Thanks, Ryan. Well, packing up for Mount Pearl. Steve Kent has represented Mount Pearl North for more than a decade. Before that, he served as the city's mayor and deputy mayor. But when the city's chief administrative officer job came open, Kent says it was an offer he just couldn't refuse. Here now's Anthony Germain caught up with Steve Kent at his soon-to-be vacated office at the Confederation Building.
So, Mr. Kent, are you going to miss this place?
I am going to miss this place. I've loved my time as an MHA, and I've got really mixed feelings about leaving. I've loved the work. I've loved the district. Mount Pearl has always been incredibly supportive of me, and I've enjoyed public life. So it's a really, really tough decision to walk away from public life, even though I'm going to continue to be involved in public service and I'm still going to be serving my community.
Was this largely a decision based on family finances? I mean, you're only 39, you got 3 young kids, you're going from a salary of 95 to almost 200, 195. Was it a big financial decision?
Family was a big part of the decision. Finances is definitely always a consideration, but I can't say it was the driver of the decision. This was an opportunity that presented itself that I just couldn't ignore. It was such a unique opportunity to be able to provide some more stability for my family and some more predictability, to have an opportunity to hopefully be an even better father and husband while still continuing a career in public service. So it wasn't something I sought out. The opportunity presented itself. Right. I considered it, I applied, and I wasn't out looking for work. And had it been any other job, I probably would not have even given it consideration.
You know, a cynical person might conclude, I don't think anybody questions that you're a proper candidate for Mount Pearl, but this is also a great escape hatch for you, isn't it? And what I mean by that is that you don't have to worry about 2018 and being part of a political team that would have to explain and campaign probably in favor of Muskrat Falls.
I'm proud of the work that we've done over the last number of years. I'm proud of the work I've done as MHA. I have no problem defending my record or the record of the PC party.
Would you campaign in favor of Muskrat Falls?
I still believe that it's a project that makes sense in the long run for our province. I have lots of concerns about what's happened in recent years. I have lots of concerns around management and oversight, but based on the information that we had available to us at the time, I still believe that the right decision was made at the time, and I still believe decades from now the province will reap the benefits of the project.
But doesn't part of you go, phew, I'm going to Mount Pearl now, I don't have to worry about this?
Anthony, the easy thing for me to do would be to continue to do what I'm doing. I love my work. I'm well established in my district. I won in 2015 when the odds were very much against me. The easy thing to do would be status quo. It's comfortable, it's familiar. I've got a strong base of support. I'm taking a major step here. It's a major career change, and that's a much tougher road. So,
are you going to be able to stay nonpartisan? Because you've got to deal with premiers who might be red premiers. You're going to have to be a little less political, aren't you?
For sure, and no doubt that will be a major adjustment.
Can you do it?
I believe I can do it. I've worked in private sector. I've worked in small business. I've worked in the nonprofit sector. I've worked for premiers and ministers in various roles since I've been an MHA. I have no doubt that it will be a significant adjustment, but it's one that I'm confident that I can make.
Well, Steve Kent, good luck.
Thanks.
I'll help you pack some of these secret documents over
here.
All
right, well, actually, these documents are off limits to the CBC, but there are some other documents you can help me pack.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Well, not only are these mailboxes a massive eyesore for the Joyce family living here, they're also a major safety hazard. I'll tell you what's going on at this house in Benoit's Cove.
Welcome back once again. Well, a family on the West Coast says a major eyesore in front of their house is disrupting their lives. Canada Post mailboxes have taken over the Joyce's front lawn, and now the family wants them moved. Here Now's Carolyn has more.
Well, as you can see, there are 4 Canada Post mailboxes right in front of the Joyce's front door here in Benoit's Cove. And the family says, you know, this goes beyond being just a eyesore. These mailboxes are a massive safety hazard. Neighbors pull up to grab their mail, blocking the family's vehicles and driveway. David Joyce has lived here for 11 years and seen plenty of accidents.
My daughter had a new car for my daughter. Somebody came to the rear end of that right off of the bat. Like my truck's been run into, a car been run into. There have been several minor accidents and a lot of close calls.
Canada Post has added more and more boxes to this spot over the decade. In today's tough real estate market, Joyce is fed up.
So we were going to go to work and sell the house and move into cottages or something in Corner Brook, which would be more convenient for us. And I mean, you know, we've tried, but you can't, you know, that there is, you know, is eyesore really.
With no option but to stay, the Joyces are now trying to get Canada Post to move the mailboxes to a different location. Town Council suggested a better space, but Joyce says Canada Post wants him to pay for the removal.
And they said that that piece of property that it's onto belongs to the government because it's 33 feet from, less than 33 feet from the center of the road.
Joyce has reached out to local and federal government and Canada Post, but no one has come forward to help yet. The Joyce family only hope that with the help of local council, Canada Post, and even the government, these mailboxes can be moved to a much better location. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Benoit's Cove.
Now to the series Deep Trouble, our look this week at the plight of the right whale. Scientists at the Atlantic Veterinary College in Charlottetown say working to figure out what's killing the whales has been intense. They've performed 7 necropsies in just 4 months. As Nancy Russell explains, it was a race against time.
These days, Laura Bourque and Pierre-Yves Daou are putting in long hours here in the lab, analyzing hundreds of pieces of evidence they gathered from 6 giant right whales this summer. For Bourque, the biggest challenge yet of her young career.
It's daunting. To be honest, I hadn't done anything as large as a right whale before I got here. I'd done dolphins and, you know, belugas and things like that. This is an entirely different situation because this animal, you know, are megatons. They're just huge, and you have to do them out in the open on a rocky beach, which is not always easy to maneuver.
Bourque and Daou were among the first to get the call about the dead right whales, heading out to the Gulf to get a closer look. The scientists knew they had to get to the animals as quickly as possible, or they risked losing any chance of finding out what happened to them.
Because of the large size of the carcass, they decompose very quickly, and that becomes another major challenge, which often would obscure some important changes in the carcass.
Because they were racing against time, the team even tried doing some work at sea, Daou climbing aboard a whale carcass to try to gather some evidence.
There's a fairly famous picture at this point, I think, of Pierre riding a whale in the middle of the Atlantic, but we were only able to do very superficial work.
The decision was made to tow the whale carcasses to land, 3 of them to Norway PEI on the island's western tip. Then the challenging work of cutting open the giant animals. The team included students from the Atlantic Veterinary College and experts from across North America who rushed to PEI to help.
A good 10-12 hours of work from morning to late afternoon, early evening.
3 whale necropsies in 3 days on PEI, 6 in total over a month around the Gulf. But there were also setbacks.
They were pretty decomposed by the time they got to us. Working with rotten tissue is very difficult.
There was still enough good tissue for the scientists to do their work, despite the decomposition. There are working theories at this point. Signs of internal hemorrhaging, possibly from being struck by a ship. Some whales had evidence of being entangled in nets, but no definitive answer yet.
It certainly does increase the pressure, mostly because these are extremely endangered animals, and I know myself and Pierre and everybody else that I've worked with, we're so worried about the state of their population.
Above all, Daou and Bourque say they want to get it right, to avoid another season of right whale deaths, a learning curve they don't want to have to repeat. Nancy Russell, CBC News, Charlottetown.
Well, you've seen them out there, drivers talking away on their cell phone as they drive through intersections. Another province is about to introduce stronger penalties for distracted and careless driving. That story is just ahead. Oh, this is always a nice part of our program. Our young athlete of the day, Caden Terrence from Kelligrews, 8 years old and loves to stay active.
Caden plays squash with the CBS Squash Club and soccer with the CBS Soccer Association. He also takes swimming lessons and would love to be a coach someday.
Great work, Caden. You are today's young athlete of the day.
So before we talk about the weather, Ryan, what's the latest on Hurricane Maria? It's been bashing lots of places, especially Puerto Rico.
Yeah, Puerto Rico is really taking the brunt of the storm today.
And it's done huge damage in Dominica and the Virgin Islands, too.
That's right. Now, have a look at some of this video. Incredible. The video, of course, shows the sheer power of this now historic storm. Parts of buildings were torn off, trees bent. With the strength of those destructive Category 4, just shy of Category 5 winds, people huddled in staircases in search of shelter. Basically, the entire territory is without power. Widespread flooding, unofficial amounts of 900 millimeters of rain. And again, that's basically in 24 hours, the worst storm to hit Puerto Rico in 85 years.
Oh my, those poor people.
Yeah, just some of the pictures of the damage starting to come out now. And again, obviously with no power, some of those pictures hard to get, but they look pretty devastating. And when you look at the size of this storm, and there is again San Juan, just look at how small the territory is compared to the size of that storm, which rolled right over the center. The eye wall went right over Puerto Rico last night. Because it did, that storm has weakened to a Category 2, but still a Category 2 storm that is rolling northward as we speak. And as we look at the track over the next couple of days, will likely re-strengthen to a major hurricane on Thursday and into the weekend, a Category 1 or 2 as it starts to round the bend here and work north. There's Bermuda. There's, of course, the Carolinas, and somewhere in this vicinity by the time we get to early next week. Beyond that, certainly something we need to keep an eye on here in Atlantic Canada, but lots of uncertainty. And one of the factors in where Maria will track next week is Jose, which is, again, still spinning off the northeast U.S. and will continue to spin there for the next 4 or 5 days. What Jose does and how strong it remains will have big implications for Maria in the forecast for next week. So we're going to be keeping a very close eye on that. Stay tuned for updates. Now, for Thursday, as I mentioned, a little bit of drizzle along the Avalon, along the coast of Labrador. Otherwise, it's a very bright but breezy fall-type feeling day as we count down the last couple of days of summer. 13 degrees in St. John's tomorrow and Gander and along that northeast coast. Just single digits along the coast of Labrador tomorrow, but we're climbing into the 13 to 16 degree range from Labrador down towards the southwest coast. Area of high pressure will continue to keep things quiet as we move into Friday. You can see lots of sunshine on the menu for Friday afternoon. Labrador looking not too bad. Bit of cloud cover and shower chances towards the north. Nain down through Makovic. Everyone else in that 16, 18 degree range across the island. Even warming up towards the 20 degree mark in Happy Valley Goose Bay. And that air mass will then push into Newfoundland for Saturday. And although fall officially arrives Friday evening, Saturday will be pretty summer-like across the island with that southwest wind. That system building into Labrador will keep temps cool there, just 4 in Nain. And again, riding that 10 to 15 degree mark with those clouds and showers building into Labrador. And you can see temperatures 18 to 22 on the island for Saturday. But this system will then sail down and move across the island as we move into the Saturday night time period. And in behind, quite a contrast for Sunday as those winds shift. So I talked earlier about the weekend Saturday-Sunday split, and there it is, where we have a great day Saturday. Sunday, far from a washout, but I think clouds certainly dominating. Shower chances, especially early in the day, and then some gradual clearing into the afternoon. You can see where Thursday, Friday, looking pretty good in Labrador. That system moves through on Saturday, cooler in behind.
Thanks, Ryan. Well, in national and international news tonight, Ontario is proposing legislation to crack down on distracted driving. The proposed legislation would significantly increase penalties and fines, especially when a death results. The province calls the proposed laws the toughest in Canada and the best way to protect pedestrians and cyclists. Ron Charles reports.
Ontario Provincial Police statistics suggest distracted driving is the single biggest killer on the province's roads, bigger than alcohol, bigger than speeding. Many of the people killed each year are pedestrians and cyclists. Today, the Ontario government announced it would propose new legislation to increase fines and penalties for distracted driving.
These proposed changes will make Ontario the first jurisdiction in Canada to have a license suspension for those convicted of distracted driving, and give us the toughest penalties for repeated distracted driving convictions in the country.
The new license suspensions would be for 3, 7, or 30 days and come with new fines of up to $3,000 and up to 6 demerit points. But the most serious penalties are reserved for drivers who kill while distracted, up to a $50,000 fine and 2 years in jail. Much more than the sentence given to the driver who killed the husband of Ontario Cabinet Minister Eleanor McMahon in 2006.
His sentence, after pleading not guilty, of 100 hours of community service, a further suspended sentence, and a further suspension of his license left us all wanting. and it brought into sharp focus the need for better tools for law enforcement.
She spent the past 12 years fighting for tougher distracted driving laws. The proposed laws could be in place within the next 2 years. Ron Charles, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, the moment an earthquake hit caught on air.
Voy a levantar y voy a evacuar.
Well, you heard an anchor in Mexico as that deadly 7.1 magnitude earthquake rocked its central regions. He tells viewers to stay calm and to evacuate immediately, and that initial panic is still sending a jolt through the country as frantic rescues are still underway. One of those rescue operations is happening at the site of a school collapse in Mexico City. The building crumbled during yesterday's earthquake. The number of dead now stands at 225.
Canada's Governor-General designate, Julie Payette, has had her first meeting with Queen Elizabeth.
Bonjour. Very nice to see you.
Very nice to see you. Thank you for welcoming me.
Not a bit. Well,
I've been getting a history of the place.
Have you?
During their meeting, Payette was invested as an extraordinary companion of the Order of Canada. The meeting took place at the Queen's summer residence, Balmoral Castle in Scotland. Payette will be installed as Governor-General on October 2nd.
Well, you're looking at today's viewer picture of the day, and instead of asking where this was taken, I'm asking, what is that on the line? They're not tighty-whities. Details after the break.
Welcome back. As we were discussing a little earlier with Ryan, it's not yet the first day of autumn tomorrow, but Edmontonians, well, it's the day after. Anyway, they're already shoveling their walkways.
Yes, the city faced their first flurries of the year after a heavy rainfall. Many people were taking to Twitter to lament being faced with winter weather so soon.
Oh, they can keep it, but some are finding a silver lining, like the Edmonton Oilers. They tweeted out a picture with 2 words of optimism: hockey weather.
I was noticing some of the captions, people calling it the first Canada's first snowfall of the season. I thought, You missed the boat. Labrador City had that back on September 1st. The first snow was long ago. Anyway, I digress. Here is the look at the next 3 days. And again, some even summer-like weather pushing in for Saturday, which will be nice before our temperature drop on Sunday. Before the break, we asked you what that was hanging on the line. It was actually taken from the Northern Peninsula. I had to look this up. Straits View, which is, again, on the northern tip of the Northern Peninsula. And any guesses there? This really, again, was an interesting one for me. Had it not been written by Denise, I would never guess that this was squid.
Oh, I would never have guessed that. I was thinking peas pudding bags or something.
Yeah, it's a pretty good guess. She wrote someday on squid.
Thanks for that. And thanks to you. See you